Hi, my name is Easton Lewis, and today I'll be going over my research reflection over my term topic, arbitration. For this research project, I did a lot of research and included 9 different sources, whether they be academic journals or just websites that provided information over arbitration. Arbitration is defined as one of the most well-known of alternative litigations that involves a third party outside of a judicial setting to solve a dispute between two parties. I used 9 sources in this term project, and the first source was our class book, The Legal Environment of Business. The legal environment of business was a source that was very important for my term paper, for it was a credible source that defined arbitration, the methods of securing arbitration, the arbitrator's code of ethics, and the process of selecting an arbitrator. I was also able to include and go into depth with a lot of these topics while discussing arbitration. The second source I used in my term project was arbitration rules for dispute involving state and state entities. This was very important because it allowed me to identify the different forms that are used in arbitration and the various rules that are relevant to the dispute resolution, and if they apply to arbitrators involving state and state entities. The third resource that I used was known as Arbitration Basics by Barbara K. Repa. In Arbitration Basics, the article strengthened my paper for it provided details and basic information over the advantages and disadvantages of arbitration. I kind of use this in my paper as the pros and cons of arbitration and when parties should use it. Next, I used what to expect to hear during an arbitration hearing for personal injury claims. I didn't go into too depth about the personal injury claims as far as it, but it also just provided what you'd hear while being in an arbitration hearing. So it provided a process of arbitration hearing and the stages that you would expect to hear. And then for the resource number 5, I used arbitration definition, examples, cases, and processes. This article was very useful because it allowed me to provide cases that were settled by arbitration to explain the difference between other dispute resolutions. And then for 6, a brief premiere on the history of arbitration. I used this almost as an introduction to explain what arbitration was, where it came from, and how it has developed from its earliest ages. Number 7 was the stages of arbitration process. This was kind of similar and went hand in hand with what to expect during the hearing. It kind of went into depth more about certain details of arbitration and through its various stages and how parties should prepare for an arbitration hearing. And then in resource number 8, arbitration law, everything you need to know. It described what arbitration was, how it was used, how to arbitrate, when parties can arbitrate, and what arbitration clause is. It went into more depth about certain details, and so it allowed readers and those who went over my term paper to understand certain aspects of arbitration. And then for my last article that I used, it was what happens after an arbitrator issues an award. This went into very depth information about when an arbitrative case is solved, how an arbitrator awards and how a dispute is settled and the rules that applies after. So those were my resources for my paper. I like this project and term paper because it allowed me to learn a different aspect of the dispute resolutions and identify all of them, and then go into depth about a certain one, which is arbitration. It was difficult because Obviously, there's a lot of dispute resolutions, and arbitration being one just to focus on. I kind of felt that some information was almost repetitive, and it kind of there was some sources that would say one thing about it, and then another source that would be almost saying the opposite. So it was kind of hard going in depth about finding information and whatnot. And then to continue with future papers and future research, I would continue how I went ahead with this project. I spent a lot of time researching, and I picked the sources that I felt were best for my paper and discussed in-depth information on my topic. So that's all I have for this. Thanks.